So if you follow me on Twitter, and if you don't follow me on Twitter, what are you doing? Check out the link down below. As soon as Season 3 came out and we saw Captain Price was coming to Black Ops Cold War, I immediately said, this doesn't make any sense. The story behind it literally makes zero sense. How is it possible for this character to be in a 1984 game as a full-grown adult? And I knew I was going to have to make a video diving deep into it, but boy, did I not expect as much as I actually found on this, and that is what this video is going to be all about. There's essentially 3 different explanations as to why Captain Price could be alive in the year 1984, and yes, one of them is time travel, and yes, there is something in game to back it up, but we'll dive into that in a minute. I know it seems unbelievable, but in this video, we're going to go from beginning to end, first of all explaining why it doesn't make any sense that he's in Cold War, and then giving some explanations as to how the story could actually line up. I know it's a weird one. Hopefully you guys enjoy, but let's start it off from the beginning. So the first thing that you have to understand about all of this is the overall timeline of the current Call of Duty universe. First things first, the original 3 Modern Warfare games are not in the same universe as Modern Warfare 2019 and all of the Black Ops games. All of the Black Ops games, Warzone, and Modern Warfare 2019 are all on the same timeline. So Modern Warfare 2019 takes place from 2019 to 2020 and even into 2021, whereas Black Ops Cold War is currently taking place in the year 1984. We have, of course, the multiplayer story, which is in 1984, and we're progressing through that season after season. And then, of course, with Verdansk 84, it obviously takes place in 1984 as well and continues the story of Black Ops Cold War. Now, if you go and look at Captain Price's bio in Modern Warfare, you can't find out too much personal info about his date of birth or anything like that. However, we do know his age. He is 35 years old at the time, which puts his date of birth in the year 1985, 1 year after Black Ops Cold War takes place. Obviously, that makes zero sense. So going along the same lines, if we go into his bio in Cold War, you can see that his date of birth is redacted, his place of birth is redacted, and obviously there is something fishy going on here, which led us to the question, how is this possible? And my immediate reaction is that, first of all, they call this Captain Price 84. And with that, it led to the question, why would they change that? And believe it or not, Captain Price, or specifically John Price, is actually already in the Black Ops lore. For this, we got to go back to the end of Black Ops 1. At this time, the CIA still didn't really know if they could trust, first of all, Alex Mason, because he had been brainwashed, as well as the handler, Hudson, and of course his best friend Frank Woods. So they put together something called Operation Cherubitas. So this lore can actually be found in Black Ops 2, and it's specifically talking about the period of time after Black Ops 1 where they actually wanted to use someone to assassinate Alex Mason and Jason Hudson and even Gregory Weaver. And at the bottom it says SAS has assigned to one Jonathan Blank, aka Jonathan Price, as their lead operator. Though inordinately young for such a role, both MI6 and SAS have ensured us a prodigy and will essentially not let them down. Basically, Captain Price, or Jonathan Price at the very least, was assigned to kill Alex Mason. So at the time, there was essentially 2 theories behind this. Number 1 was Captain Price, or John Price, was a lot older than we thought he was, but once Modern Warfare came out, we then knew that he was born in the year 1985. So that doesn't make any sense. So the next theory is that this is actually John Price, or Captain Price's father. Now, the weird part is this is not the first time we've seen Captain Price. Modern Warfare was not the origination of Captain Price. Captain Price was in the very first Call of Duty game, Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2 as well. And obviously these games take place during World War II, so it makes sense that this would be Captain Price's grandfather, and then during Black Ops and Cold War era, it would be Captain Price's father, and then during the Modern Warfare time, that would just be Captain Price. And boom, there is your family tree. Now, we never had that middle link of Captain Price's father, but Black Ops would fill that role. Hence why I originally assumed that this is actually Captain John Price's father in Black Ops Cold War. But it's not. And you may be wondering how I can be so confident about that. If you just take a quick look at the bios between Black Ops Cold War and Modern Warfare, you can very quickly see exactly what I am talking about. Both of their bios are identical, literally copy and paste, word for word identical. So looking at that, that is weird in and of itself. And you could argue the fact, well, if it's a father and son, they may have a pretty similar backstory, but down to the same division in the SAS would be pretty damn rare. But more importantly, in both bios, including 1984 Cold War, we have the discussion of Task Force 141. And in this timeline, we know that this was not created or even brought up until the year 2019.
Now the rest. That's neat to know. Unless we got a deal.
What are you calling this task force?
141.
So I've talked about this before, but essentially the entire premise of Modern Warfare 2019 was the joining of Task Force 141. So to say that that existed back in 1984 is just purely wrong. So how is it possible to know about Task Force 141 literally in the past? Well, that is where time travel comes in. And before you dislike the video and say I'm crazy, there is a little bit of evidence to point towards this. First of all, we recently had a little bit of time travel within Warzone when we saw the Vodianoi, which crashed upon shore in Verdansk in the year 2020, yet left the port in Rebirth Island years and years earlier in the 80s and then showed up on shore like 40 years later. But to me, that's not enough evidence to actually support this. However, if we actually go back to Modern Warfare 3, there is more evidence. So in Modern Warfare 3, there is a map called Arkaden, which is essentially a mall. And when you go inside and have a look at one of the magazine stands, you can see a magazine that very clearly says, "Bearded Man invents time travel." I'm not trying to say that Captain Price is so brilliant that he created time travel, but it just shows that in the Modern Warfare universe, time travel exists. Now, we just talked about earlier in the video how the first 3 Modern Warfare games are not canon in this timeline. But hear me out for a second. Captain Price and all of these other characters were in those original games, and if time travel exists, essentially what that does is create a Modern Warfare multiverse. And yeah, I'm not kidding here. It would explain how Captain Price is in the older Modern Warfare games, the new Modern Warfare game, and the new Cold War game, and in all of them is relatively the same age. It would also explain why there are different universes with different characters. For example, the difference between Gaz in the old Modern Warfare games and Gaz in the new Modern Warfare games. It would also explain how Captain Price is also in World War II. He was quite literally time traveling. So I have talked about this theory on the channel before, and a lot of people asked, well, why Captain Price? Why would he be the one that's sent back in time? And I don't know this. In fact, I don't even know if this theory is real. However, what I do know is it could be a very similar reason to what we saw with Captain America. He's kind of a peer of heart character. They know if they send John Price back in time, he won't just take advantage of it and spend a lot of money on sports bets and come out of the thing really, really rich. He's going to go back and work for the greater good, like in World War II and in all of the other battles that he fights in as well. So is this time travel theory guaranteed? Absolutely not, but it's the one that makes the most sense because it's the only way that they would know about Task Force 141 back in 1984. And then there's the third theory. This is by far the most boring one, and hence why I saved it for the end of the video, but they simply added Captain Price as a promotional material. He doesn't actually fit into the lore, and they just did it to make a couple extra dollars. Personally, I really don't like this theory just because I hope they wouldn't do that, but it is very possible, and it's probably the most likely scenario, unfortunately. So at this point, you have all of the theories. The first theory that we had is you had Grandpappy Price back during World War II. Then during the Cold War, you have Daddy Price. And then in the Modern Warfare series, you then have Captain Price, the one that we know and love. I think this is a little bit far-fetched just because of the bios that we looked at before. The second theory that we have is we have Time Traveler Price. It would make sense that Task Force 141 would be known about in the 80s if Captain Price went back in time. It would also explain how he's in these different time periods like World War II, the Cold War, and on top of that, Modern Warfare. And then finally, we have the most boring theory, which is Captain Price is just being used as promotional material, which, to be quite honest, is probably the most likely, but also by far the most boring. So at this point, I want to hear what you guys think. Which theory do you believe in? Let me know down in the comments if you're convinced of one of them. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. As always, if you enjoyed the video, it's always appreciated if you do hit that like button. And if you like these story videos, I do them pretty much every single week about Call of Duty. So if you want to stay up to date, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard.